Mike, if you don't mind, do you have the high level energy management business process model that you can share?
I can get it up quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's give me a second to log in here.
Yep, no problem. And so Josh and I and Mike met last week on Tuesday to discuss what pieces Portland might be able to take out of that high level model. So today I think really we'll just discuss what Portland's looking at, what I'll be looking at, and what we need to do to continue to move this project forward. I think we're at a stage where we need to start identifying areas that utilities can start to tackle and try to make some progress for our as is and to be cases that operation that we where we want to operate. So um, here's where we are with the high level business process model. I think we still have MCES in there, but I think this is a template that is pretty could be used pretty widely for most utilities. Um, I think I'm going to be working in the measure and analyze blue box on the right side. That's where I think we've already built some sub process around, but I think it can be continue to be refined. One of the things that I'm going to be looking at is putting in some elements of the actual data processing that we're doing here at GLWA. I think it'd be good to capture that. That's going to be specific for GLWA, but it would be a good documentation of how this data is flowing through the organization for us to be able to perform that analysis. So I think that's one that I feel comfortable tackling. I don't know if Josh, you want to speak to what you're looking uh, at Portland, and that summarize our meeting Tuesday and where you see some business process models for your organization.
Certainly. And I'll start by saying that Eric too can put people on the spot. Just I don't have anything prepared because I received an email like 10 minutes before the meeting, but I can I think summarize what we talked about just on memory, and then I'll leave it to you, Eric and John and whoever else was there to to provide some corroboration and truth out what I'm saying. But we started off, and I'm glad you have the screen that you have up right now because and then pulling from that measure and drilling into that measure and analyze box. I think that is the area where we currently are devoting a lot of our effort. It's kind of that's where our energy management process sort of lives. And again, I just I think I've said this before, but we have a system that's that we have two wastewater plants, although the Columbia Boulevard plant is the main plant by far. And so the group that's working on energy management, we're kind of, we're in a silo of excellence unto ourselves a little bit, which is one of the issues that we've talked about, and how to sort of globalize this across the organization. A separate challenge, but a really, I think, a really important challenge at the same time. So I think we're a pared down version based on just the energy management of the main wastewater facility. And we have this energy team it works closely with Energy Trust of Oregon, which is resources provided through a fee on the investor-owned utility that provides us with power. So so there's a fee that pays for industrial energy efficiency activities, and Energy Trust is the organization that sort of doles that out. And we work with them. We do treasure hunting, which you're all familiar with. We go out and then we test out. We collect ideas. We start sort of at the ground floor level with our staff. We try to engage them. That's a big part of what we're doing. And I think that kind of falls into this smaller this expanded box here, which is collecting process data. We also, are in the process of, I think, at a larger scale, so as a facility, and also across BES, BES, Bureau of Environmental Services, we are grappling with this question of data and where it comes from, and where to, standardizing instead of having, 20 different groups kind of with their unique approaches, grabbing the same data and reinventing the wheel. So that data collection piece is a big one. But for the meeting last week, we started talking a lot about the work that we have done a little bit more extensively, which is in the area. It's Mia's group who's doing condition assessment work. And so that does, it does look at the efficiency of our motorized equipment. And so, we are in the process of trying to deploy energy measurement in various pumps, and using that wire to water efficiency calculation as a way of assessing the as a way of doing predictive maintenance and doing condition-based maintenance on our, but it fits. There is, it does fit into the review and assess current performance, identify improvements, set targets, and also in the box that we have open, the measure and analyze box. So that we talked quite a bit about that, and Brittany has a pretty decent model of how we do that work, which we shared. And then I'll just let you know that we have Mia set up a meeting on the 10th for us to dive into building a model. I think I made a promise that I would build a model, have at least a sketch of a model that you could look at. Haven't done it, and Mia came to the rescue and set up a meeting, which is always good to have a deadline for us to all kind of put our heads together around this schematic model. So that's on the 10th. So we're moving a little bit slower, I think, than we talked about in our meeting, but we are moving towards getting an example out to you guys. And that's where I noticed that Mia entered, and she might want to share. So I was just summarizing, Mia, if you're here and you're listening, kind of where we ended up from that meeting with Eric. There you are.
Good morning, everyone. I apologize I'm late. Josh, you're doing such a great job. I was like agreeing with everything you were saying.
Oh, you're too kind.
So yeah, so definitely we will meet and kind of hash through our workflow for the energy committee and also energy work, and then also include information on our external stakeholders like the City of Portland, Bureau of Sustainability, and how we interact with them, and also our data processing data needs included in that. So I was talking to Gina Shepherd yesterday, Josh, and I was asking if she can also be included. She's really good about workflow design. She works with us for the condition assessment program. And maybe we can also start backwards. Neil has very clear visions of what he wants to show to the leadership. And so we can take that information product and then work back to see how that's being generated and how we can optimize that.
Yeah, I mean, for my struggle, I guess, is my head goes in a million different directions on this, and yeah, I think it is that approach would be probably pretty helpful. Yeah. So, is there any specific question, Eric, or any? Oh, I see a hand
Yeah,
up.
Scott has his hand
Scott's
up.
got his hand up.
Yeah, this is more of a question, just in terms of the scope of the effort that you're doing. Is we have talked previously also that we have business process and technology assessment tools that can be used and workshopped, in the process of identifying what improvements you need to make and that kind of thing. And I was just curious whether that was part of your discussion, Josh, and even Eric, whether, a couple of you, a few of you, a small team or whatever would want to go through that process, because it does help identify gaps and also really deals with the context. And that context can be then communicated to top management and such too, if you need to do that. So that was just, we've talked about this before. We don't have to go back through it all, but that was just a question that I had.
Yeah, and we did talk about that actually during the meeting that we had. We spent a bit of time going back and kind of looking at the big picture, the whole kind of utility management scale picture, and how the different groups and whys are working together, and what kind of sharing across those different work groups. And so when Mia, I'm glad you're inviting Gina. I mean, I haven't worked with her very much, but I have the work that I have had, or the workshops that I've been in with her, a couple at the very beginning when I started. Yeah, she's very good at this. It's ringing true what you're saying. She's I remember that Sarah brought her in to help me kind of do some workflow process thought.
Yeah,
So
she's good
that'll
about
be-
asking questions. So Scott, would it make more sense that once we have our internal meeting, after that we can re-engage with you and look at the business process development tools that you mentioned, and just kind of take our work through that tool to identify any gaps that possibly team had missed?
Yeah, sure. And, I think Cello wants to pile on here, I think, but because you want alignment, with your organization and how you achieve that, what's best. And actually part of the process that we lay out kind of starts with the preliminary planning that you're doing. So that all fits. But, I see that Cello has his hand up too.
Well, yeah, I wanted to say that we can, as far as the project team, Scott and Mike Barnett and I can provide some assistance, I think, with this. Mike has worked very well with different groups, specifically on business process modeling. And the assessments that Scott is talking about, these are really just tools to help go through some working sessions and meetings. And I have made a bit of progress. We have made a bit of progress in terms of laying it out in a more user-friendly way than it was last time. And I can show what this entails, but I know that it'll look like kind of complicated stuff, but it's really not. It's really not. Let me see. I'll just share my screen for a second to show what I'm talking about. Let me know when you see it.
It's there.
Yep.
Yeah. So these are the steps as far as the assessment is concerned in these orange boxes. And like Scott says, it's in a spreadsheet that is posted, and it's kind of still work in progress. So it would start with preliminary planning. The idea is that we will also provide guidelines for how to use this spreadsheet. And so once you select, so this preliminary planning will include for you to select the business process and identify the stakeholders, and then find out in this box a little bit about what this business process is about. And once you do that, then you look at technology aspects, and as far as and then you can at the same time develop documentation of the business process in similar to what Eric is doing and what Mike was just sharing. Previously, we would just launch into this. We didn't have these tools to look at the characteristics of the business process because our group was fairly small and this kind of stuff developed organically. But just to show you how this could work, this part on the business process, it's very simple. When you would go there, it would essentially, you would figure out what the scope is, what's the impact, how much documentation you have, what are your goals, and how is this process managed. So as far as scope, it's very, for now, it's very simple, and we can extend and make this more complicated. But you would just say, well, how many people are involved in this process? Is it just like, just members within a small business unit and that's it? Or is it maybe 2 or 3 business units, or 4 or more? Some of these things are somewhat arbitrary. Or if it's maybe many business units across the organization, something like that indicates that it'll be a more comprehensive, a bigger problem. And then you could go look at the impact. You could look at the impact and say, okay, this process that you're selecting, what if you make changes here, what impact is it likely to have on levels of service, regulatory compliance, cost, financial impact, organizational reputation, legal exposure, organizational culture. Okay, I see that there's a typo here. Integrity of organizations, physical assets, employee engagement, just to know, if there's a major impact across the board, and these are just arbitrary, it tells us something, how about the process. What kind of documentation do we have about the process? And these answers are just kind of there for the testing purposes. Do we know what the activities and workflows are? What's the data required to support them? The activities, decisions, data required to support decision making technology systems or systems that enable the activities, roles and responsibilities, and so forth. So we get a sense for how much we know about this process. I see that Josh has his hand up.
Yeah, this is really this is taking a lot of really granular, kind of going into a pretty detailed understanding of your business process. So you really are diving way deep in there. I remember you showed us a similar to the first diagram that you showed that had sort of gradated. So it was more oriented towards stakeholder, and I think it grouped the stakeholders as you know, sort of people, technology
Yes.
experts. And is that I'm trying to, because immediately when I saw this, that's what I thought of. And is that part of the same questionnaire sort of? And then the last part is like, what are the outputs from this? What are the outputs? What are they going to look like?
Yes, yeah. So the this is version 9 of the spreadsheet, and you know, a number of changes. So most of this, when it comes to these two boxes on the left, came from a different research project. So we didn't really have that as part of our efforts before, these types of assessments. So the idea was that we would look at the business process, and then once you have that business process defined, then you would look into the technology. So the first bridge between the two is when you define what kind of data do you need to support this process. So you'd be just typing in something here and typing in something here. So then when you look at, you know, and then what's not bad to write is which business unit is responsible for collecting or creating this data, and which business unit and it supports the IT system and database. Because when and then, you know, for example, how well is data documented? Is it in, you know, what's the maturity there? And it's really not rocket science, but it's just a bit of structure. And then how do you collect it? Is it, you know, is the data collected, you know, manually entered into files that, you know, or is it extracted automatically from other IT system or database and stuff like that? Is it adequate or not? And it sort of builds then how reliable is the data? You know, where is it stored? And for each one of these data sources, you know, what's your assessment with the data? How complete is the data? And then how is it organized? Is it organized that the naming convention is unique for this system database? Nobody else shares it? I'll stop. Josh, you still have your hand up, and Eric as well.
Yeah, I was just sorry to hog the airtime.
No.
But it's there's a lot of implications for this, and so I was wondering if so is this sort of like a gap analysis that you're getting at? Is that basically where we end up? Is like, you know, this is what we strategically need to be doing, and this is what we do now, and here's how we do it now. This is the sort of baseline
correct.
model.
That is correct. That is exactly correct. And so Eric has his hand up as well.
Yeah. So is this still under development, Cello? Or are you
Yes.
still refining? Okay.
Yeah, I'm still developing. I'm totally open to comments and changes. And the idea that we would like is for people to try to implement it and then give better comments to say, well, you know, when we were working with this didn't work well for us. This worked okay with us. So the idea is that we would then spruce this up. And so it really is in such a format that best you know, addresses the needs. So
one other thing, I just a
Sure.
little bit in the weeds, but and you're just showing us quick, but when you had that that automatic extract, as somebody who deals with that data stuff, you may want to consider like how stable is your extraction, because once you set up some of those automatic processes, people think it's done. But I run into those one-offs all the time where the extraction is the problem and
Yes.
you get into issues there. So I don't know if you have that covered or not, but when you had that.
I don't think I have that covered in explicitly like you described, but totally we can have add a question that says, how is integration done currently? Is it point to point? Is it via files? Is it via APIs? So if you look at analytics, what I have partially is, let me see. I have it under the category of BI tools, and are BI tools used at all? And then how you would, if you had it, would it make an improvement? We want to see, they're not, excuse me, that something's not done for the sake of something. And the bottom line is that eventually, for each one of these sets, let me make this a little bigger, you'd get kind of like a dashboard that allows you to look at these levels, one, which is gathering data, the business level, the analytics level, and so forth, for each of the data sources that you wanted to tap into. And answering these questions going through these questions would be helpful for making sure that when you select technology, that you have, that you have foundation for that. Am I making any sense?
So Eric and Josh, I mean, where Cello said, it's still under development. I mean, you can see that there's a little more work to do, but in fact, the questions are there, at least the ones to start with. And you can see that things are color coded, so you can helps you with a gap assessment, and that it sets you up to be able to do workshops. There's templates that need to be done, to help enable that, but there's a lot already there. And it is like the ninth iteration from what you saw earlier. So it's all kind of the same thing. It's Cello's effort to get it into one place in one form. And also, I know Alice was talking to you too in BES. You may not want to do it now, but there's also the workforce and the organizational culture side of things as well, where there's a tool that is developed and can be used and incorporated as well. So there's a lot here that's available. And like Mia was saying, maybe you want to get your internal act together a little bit, but the project team, Cello and Mike and I are available to have discussion with you about how to tailor it to meet your needs and what you need to know in terms of the tools and basically you need to have project management and tool capability expertise that you use with your team, and you need to identify the stakeholders that you want to include and that kind of thing.
I always do this instead of zooming in. There are 2+ symbols in the right corner. Always add a new worksheet. It's driving me nuts. But anyway, so what I wanted to say, this was one type of dashboard that I saw, and then I saw, okay, well, maybe we can have a different dashboard that goes in this way. So I'm still playing around and then thinking about if you want to bolt on Power BI, which one of these is going to work better. So it's really open to. I'm also working on things that would actually start computing the overall maturity level for each of the layers. This is just started yesterday, and so you have 4 layers of on the technology side, and it's just still work in progress. But the idea is that this would not be a survey. but this would be a template that people can use in meetings and, and say, well, is this data any good? Do we need to look into it? Or we don't know where it's coming from, so that can kind of support the work. It's not the work, it's just support for the work.
In our discussions on process, we are working with other groups that are doing the same or similar things. So there's overlap, and so we can define like our energy management process and then start asking a bunch of questions about it. But there are other groups that are after similar data. I think at the data level, there's a lot of overlap, and I'm wondering if this tool deals with that. And then I had another question that just flew out of my head, so I'll leave it there.
Let me, because this analysis of different data sources would apply regardless of what application system or logic you want to apply to the data that comes out of there. So if you, for example, in your process that you're looking at, you look at SCADA data and you look at CMMS data, whoever later looks at it will have it available, but somebody else may have a business process that deals with procurement, which will have, different data sources. So absolutely, a tool can be in place to bridge these things, so that let's say the second person that goes in to look at doing this could have some of this stuff already filled out, and can be then just updated so it lives someplace, so that this kind of table would be useful to anybody who wants to understand where the data is coming from. Does that make sense, Mia, Josh, others, Eric?
Yes. So I think I had a question in the chat, Cello, if we can get this tool, if you can email us this tool, and we will definitely use it during our work session.
Yes,
and then we can provide feedback.
Yes, I will definitely provide you the link to this file, but please, it's work in progress. So if you open it up today, it will be different than what it was yesterday. I'll be making different versions and things. So it's not like ready for prime time today for like that you could, but if we work together on it, you'll know enough about it that you can start use it before everything is like really spruced up. But the idea is that through kind of trying to use it and improve it, that in a few months we'll have something that's really useful. And some of this data that you're gathering on the availability and completeness of certain data sets is going to be useful for other types of work as well.
Sorry, Josh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think, rather than the functionality and the algorithms behind the spreadsheet, which may or may not be, complete, there's the just sort of the basic questions that I think we can maybe run through just the script, just basically the script for those questions without getting hung up too much on the spreadsheet maturity. But so I think but go ahead, Mia. That's all I wanted to say. I think we can do an abridged version without getting too backed up on the spreadsheet itself, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say that we do use something similar when we do workflow planning for the Bureau. We usually use RACI matrices.
Sure.
And then that helps us establish the stakeholders, the data sources, the deliverables, and then we work backwards into workflow development or design. And with that being said, I also want to highlight that our asset management group is really starting to get revamped. We just recently hired a new asset manager. So I think this tool can definitely be, like I think Cello or somebody else already said, used for asset management as well. it would be much more complex than an energy management team.
Sure, and you can see that there is a page here that I skipped called stakeholders. This could easily be the reason I just want, for now, I just had these 4 things, but we can make the table bigger. The thing is that I'm trying to find a balance between how much information will it contain versus when people say, oh, this is too much, I give up, I'm not going to do anything. You know what I mean? So RACI matrix is also something that could be built from the list of stakeholders. So it's a great idea, and it certainly would be a great addition. And what I've tried to do, so for example, this step of, so the business stuff is kind of in blue and assessments are in, so, you know, document as is business process. If you click on this, it'll open up the guidelines, the business process modeling guidelines that we have published under UAIN. And we will be updating this document so that we will include links to links to documentation and artifacts that can be useful. And in the future, we can add things or artifacts and stuff like that to be played, so that we have a set of links across the sheet.
It's your idea of using what exists and then on your own, I guess, identifying, well, what gaps have we identified? What do we need to focus on? What do we need to improve? And, the tool is going to be, more integrated later, but you get the idea that you're really trying to identify what improvements. The other comment is you're not the only one who might want to look at RACI type stuff at the front end. We've designed it so that it's part of the business process that you identify. So you have the swim lanes and stuff, but you can have preliminary conversations, as some others are doing, about, in a stakeholder kind of context or roles and responsibility context, about, who's going to be responsible and accountable and informed and consulted and that kind of thing, even up front, so you're clearer on that as you go through your documentation.
Yeah, and I think some of those are positions that are going to be blank. I mean, we don't have somebody that does that. Like if this is a gap analysis and we're looking at, here's where we want to end up. In fact, I guarantee you that there will be some blank cells there, or at least, we don't have a comment, we don't have that person, or we don't have that role. And then, bandwidth is a huge deal. It keeps us kind of frozen in the arcane processes that we're doing now. So but I believe that by thinking through these, you will actually end up freeing people up. I kind of feel like, we do a lot of work that is manual and arduous. And I'm not just talking about City of Portland or BES. It's just about every organization I've been in, where the technology that we need can actually free people up to do their work. So
you see, these are great comments. And we can build this up as we go, and this doesn't have to solve all the problems, and it can be a link to your project management system or whatever, but the idea is to have something that would help us have a consistent structure across different types of things that are due. So the same thing will be for asset management and so forth. And if you look at this box, assess the people aspect, we already have that worked out. So it'll be basically a link to the forms and things like that you can use, Microsoft Forms, and there are tools there. So we're making progress on these things.
Yeah, sometimes you find that people are the biggest hurdle because of the resistance to change. So even though we do have archaic processes, some people like the archaic processes because
Yep.
it doesn't require them to learn anything new. They just stay in their lane zone.
Well,
It's a
absolutely.
safe place. Yeah.
Yes.
It's safe, and there are systems of reward and punishment that are in place that keep those systems sort of locked
Yes.
in. So it's
Yeah.
not just the people, it's the whole system is built around processes that we don't want to. There can be houses of cards in there that we don't really want to look at today, because if we do, the fear is the whole thing will fall apart, you know?
Yeah,
But if
we
you-
have, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mia. That's a very good comment.
I was gonna say, if you're not rowing hard, you're not creating waves, right? And if you're not creating waves, you're not working hard. So I
Well-
don't know. That's the way I see it.
Well, yeah, and you know, I spoke to my friend in Croatia who spent like big amount of money to really repair and fix the bicycle that his father used to ride around. You know, he's my age. And the guy at the bicycle shop told him, you know, for this kind of money, you could have bought a brand new, beautiful bicycle. But the guy said, but this is my father's bicycle. I'll pay anything. You know, so what people value and how they are attached to things, you know, we also have a structure proposed for change management assessment as well. And I'm not saying, or we're not saying that we have to do all of these things at once, but if we start building a portfolio of tools that will help us have conversations about different subjects and then start filling it in, isn't it safer to know if you're buying a piece of software to do asset management that you see that the sources of data, you know, that there are like how many you need and what completeness? It's something that, you know, if we don't do it, it's, you know, pay dearly for it later. Anyway, I'm getting off my soapbox. So does this make sense to you guys? So you will think about what kind of processes you want to dig into. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's great, Cello.
It's like on an airline, you have to, you know, when you're in the exit row, you have to give a yes or no.
Well,
So
you've brought up the assessment tool a few times, and it seems like it's really coming together now. It's been in development, but you really can see the finish line now.
Yeah, I hope that it helps. It is. I'm also trying to figure out as far the delivery of these tools, and the reason that I chose Excel is because everybody's using it, everybody's familiar with it. I can provide a file that they can then, you know, work with. The more complex, you know, if I start attaching Power BI tools to that, anytime somebody changes the spreadsheet, they're going to have to go in and monkey around. So I'm trying to stay in a zone that's kind of safe for now, but we can always improve it later. Anyway, you guys can let me know how you feel about it, but I will post the links. Let me see. I'll post a link to this document. I'll give it to Eric, and when he sends out the notification, the link will be there. But please don't expect something that's ready for prime time and all polished and figured out. It's you know, and you'll see some construction, that some pages are under construction.
Do you hope to collect data back to yourself when people use this tool?
It is the option for some things. I think that would be great. For example, like what Mia was saying, this kind of tool actually would apply equally well to asset management. It's really independent of the process. So there, I don't think that there are many barriers to sharing this among utilities. When it comes to the people and culture things, those might be a little bit more complicated to share, because even within so what I've been doing there is, if people want to do that, I set up a SharePoint site that only that utility has access to. And they can, because it's a survey that it talks about how people feel about things. Here we're saying, data is either complete or is not complete. How you feel about it, okay, we'll consider, but it's really about what are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish? And that, I think, everybody would benefit if the format is consistent of the tool, if we can get it can be consistent, and that we can compare notes between different utilities. And I'm open to sharing, making, once you have the spreadsheet, you can do whatever you want with it. And I think that if we put a space in the shared area where people who are willing to share that information can share it, that I think would be great. But if somebody says, well, we're not comfortable sharing, well, that's fine too, as long as it's useful to you.
There's still the option for you to, even on the people stuff, on the workforce and organizational culture, for you to have all that and maintain it. It's just that confidentiality might be important, so that when individuals are completing a survey, that you don't see who it is, so that it's more honest in terms of what they're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Mia. So that's where we're at, really, and we can think about it as all being, in a workshop together and building something together, and making it better.
Yeah, I was just, I like the idea of the sharing, and even maybe anonymously sharing the results. Like long term, if this got traction and it was being used, you may learn a lot about our sector by getting that information back and see in general where organizations are struggling or where they're succeeding, and things of that nature.
Yeah, I want to just call on a couple of people who have joined, our friends John, James, and Keith, and see if they have any comments or thoughts. If John Norton doesn't have a comment, I'll be shocked.
This is the most important thing ever. And Eric, Eric's been doing awesome with our energy, and he's been doing awesome because of data. And when I say data and dashboards, and he goes like, well, John, I don't need help making dashboards. I need help with cultural change. He's trying to convince a bunch of people to do something different. My phone, did it just die? You guys still there? Where the hell are you?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Yeah.
He's
trying to convince a bunch of people to do something different. And those people don't have a whole lot of time, if any, on their plate to do much else. And no one was ever fired if they used too much energy. So it's like, it's not only do they not have enough time to do it, and they haven't done it before, those are two important things, but it's not even completely relevant to their jobs. And I get it. I'm getting it. And Eric's been schooling me on this, and I'm getting it more and more because he's doing an awesome job with the data and the such. And I think that's the most important part. And then the one young lady I did not catch her name, who said that we got to make waves, and if we're not making waves, we're not doing our job. I want to hire her because she's awesome, because that's exactly my opinion. If we're trying to do anything. So now with that, I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Zanetta, any thoughts from you, perhaps? No?
No, I think you've done an extra job of laying it out. I think it's excellent, and just looking forward to using it.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts before we cut off the recording? Okay. Well, we will post the link to this tool. As I said, it is under construction, but a lot of content has been included already, and that's work that has taken it has taken quite a bit of work on that different WRF project. So anyway,
I'm
Eric,
really glad you got to that, Cello. I think you had a great audience today to show this to. I think Mia and Josh are. It's the good timing, and excited to try that out for you. And going back just to our main missive, I think that I want to just bring up again that we're looking for people to contribute to the energy management business process models. If your organization, Keith or James or Zanetta, if you have any ideas, any pieces. One thing when Josh was summarizing and brought up the treasure hunts, and that's a very popular phrase in the energy management field and a popular concept, but even that is kind of nebulous too. It's a little bit like, hey, go find things. Maybe some structure around that. We know wastewater systems and we know water systems. What are the things we're looking for? What should you look at in your air compression system? What should you look at in your pump performance? All these things could be fleshed out a lot more. I think in energy management, the treasure hunt's a great term, but we're in a particular industry that uses energy in a particular way. So we could use that one as one that somebody could kind of flesh out a little more. What are you looking at? What are you trying? Where are you performing now? How do you go about checking your air compression system? Because I did a little bit of that a couple weeks ago at one of our facilities. So just some ideas. Please, anybody feel free to reach out to me if you have some ideas that you think you could build out a business process model with.
Okay. Well, I'm
You
going to
should document that treasure hunting process, Eric. It wouldn't take you long, but that would be a nice addition.
And I think
I wasn't volunteering, Scott.
what you're talking about, Eric, is it like these are sort of standard checklists of things to go look for at wastewater plants, for example, broken down into pumping and aeration, biological treatment, digester mixing, those kinds of process areas, and then a checklist of here are some typical things to go look for. Our utilities, our process water, our process air, all those kinds of things listed out. Do you have something like that? Because I agree that would be great.
That would be really great.
I don't have anything right now. No.
Zanetta.
I just wanted to add, I'm implementing AI at 2 of our facilities. And so we're going to be setting up some metrics to be able to track. We have a dashboard and everything. So we're using it to help track pump performance, what's lead and lag, and that type of thing. So once we really be able to, over a period of a year, be able to summarize what we did in the process for doing that, because it's new, so we didn't have it as is. So but we will track that. And then the other thing we're doing in our evaluation of our biosolids is what we're going to do with our energy. And so what we'll probably do with that is track how we came up with that decision. Mr. Norton and I were also working with the Water Research Foundation in terms of looking at projects, and we can't really go through a lot of that as well. But some of the things of our ideas have talked about that crossover to over here. So there, we can assume that there will be some heads up that there will be some projects that will come out that be able to get some grants and things like that. So we're really trying to lead that effort to get some of that done and get funded. And so that'll be coming up. So as soon as that's released, then we'll be able to share that with you. I'm on the rack, so I'll be help making those decisions. So, we're all over the place, but we're trying to make some impact. So some of this just takes a little bit longer and time, and this is one of them too. But we have, I think, some good deliverables and tools that we'll be able to use and give to you, Eric, because I love your process, and so you'd be a good, excellent source for us to run those things through and get your input. So I just wanted to add that at the end.
Yeah, Zanetta, if you come up here, you can work with Eric directly.
Saying.
He keeps
So-
trying to tell me that, Eric, I'm gonna give you a call. I'm gonna get the real scoop.
Okay, perfect.
So is this going to be a WRF project, Zonetta, or is it going to be just a Louisville project?
Well, mine's going off regardless. I have 2 projects that are going, but what I am saying is that WRF is looking at this same issue and how that they can fund projects that are similar. So we really can't go in, with all the process of it or what's going to be the outcome, and we don't know the outcome. But I just want to tell you there may be some other funding available to help usher some of this.
Oh,
And
yeah, great.
so we don't know what they'll be. If I had the crystal ball, but I just wanted to tell you that this is one of the areas.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That
Mr.
makes a lot of sense. That makes a
Okay.
lot of sense. So,
You have to do the RFPs, basically, have to get created, and with your knowledge, you might be able to identify some linkages and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what we've tried to do in an independent way. That is why I'm looking at the chat too. But yeah, no, there's some things that we can't have, but we just want to put that on your radar, and we'll let you know when those are come to fruition. But just wanted to let you know that we're not the only. There's support on the way and this ability to be able to get some of this done. I believe. Again, that we're trying to objectively lead that effort, and we have a lot of experts that have the same pain points as we have.
that sounds great. So I'll stop the recording. So now